name is Anton Flores. I am a professional MMA fighter, and I am here at Salvador Juanes Center getting my therapy to regain range of motion from my last fight. I am here with my therapist, Martin.
Hi. Okay, so first he's coming in with symptoms of sciatic-related symptoms. So we're going to focus on the sciatic nerve. So we're going to be running through 3 stretches, focusing on the glutes and the lower back. So first we'll start off with just a knee raise. And Antoine, where are you feeling the stretch?
I'm feeling that on my glute, on my hip.
So now for the next stretch is a half crossover stretch. So typically when the hips are flexible, we'll be able to raise the heel right over the opposite hip. So right here it's a bit tight. And we're going to actually run through some PNF exercises, which is for rehabilitation for injuries. So Antoine, I'll have you resist against this hand and try to push towards me with as much force as you can. Now with injured patients, it may be very sensitive and it may be very painful to run through these exercises, but we carefully guide you through them so it's not as painful. All right, relax, take a deep breath. So now there's an increase in flexibility and the muscles are more relaxed. So we'll just do it one more time. And relax, take a deep breath.
Wow.
Okay, now for the third stretch, it'll be a crossover stretch where we'll bring the leg over the other. And immediately in going into the stretch, okay. So Antoine, where are you feeling the stretch?
I feel it right on my glute and part of my lower back.
Okay.
I'm feeling that sciatic nerve being stretched out.
Yeah. So right here is one of the deepest glute stretches. And primarily, why are we focusing on the glutes when we're wanting to focus on the sciatic nerve? Well, that's because the sciatic nerve connects in the lower back. It originates in the lower back and it runs down to the toes. But it runs down through the glutes, and a lot of the times, in very few cases, it runs through a muscle that's called the piriformis. So we'll just relax it a bit. It runs through a muscle called the piriformis, and when that piriformis muscle gets very intense, it can either compress on the nerve or it'll squeeze around it, causing us to feel all these pain and sensations that make us feel we have sciatica. So we want to definitely focus on not only the piriformis especially, but rather the glutes as a whole to relax that area so we don't have compression over the nerve. So now Antoine, resist against this hand and try to bring your hip back. With as much force. And relax, take a deep breath. So right now we don't have much strength coming from this area, so we want to increase that. And as you can see, his knees naturally coming down a lot lower, so we are getting that relaxation, and that's helping the lower back and the glutes. And now again, resist. So right away I feel an increase in strength. And typically these exercises show results immediately, and of course in continuing sessions then we get even greater results. All right, so now relax, take a deep breath, and exhale. Okay, so now that we've run through the stretches and we've already relaxed the area, now we're going to go into a bit of massaging, focusing on the spine for the nerve specifically. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and start warming up the tissues. And now we're going to get in deep and more targeted into the muscles in the massage work. And so typically we'll spend some time warming up the muscles and just getting them prepared, so it's not as much of a shock into it, because we are dealing with a nerve, and primarily one of the large nerves that runs down, like I said, down to the toes. So we don't want to cause so much of a drastic change in it. So here we focus not just on the lower back where the nerve starts, but the lower back down to at least mid-glute. And normally we'll run 15 minutes to half an hour on one side when we're focusing on sciatica or sciatic related symptoms. But it's usually depending on the severity of in the case. So right here it's not as bad, but there is definite tension in the glutes. So we want to focus on freeing up that space between the nerves and the muscles. And a lot of the time we'll apply pressure or compression down on the hamstrings. A lot of the times there's our patients experience pain that runs down in the middle of the hamstring, sometimes the calves, very few times down to the heel.
This feels very relaxing.
Alright, and now to get in deeper, then we'll bring up the knee, and that really pushes out that muscle that I mentioned earlier, that piriformis, that really pushes it up, so now we can really focus on it. That piriformis muscle is typically that muscle that usually cramps up whenever we feel we're getting a cramp in the glutes if we're running. It'll tense up no matter what, whether we're standing, sitting, walking. So it doesn't really matter what you do, it'll still tense up because a lot of the pressure we receive from just doing everyday activity falls on the glutes. And especially when the glutes pull on the lower back, so a lot of the time lower back pain can be resolved by also focusing on the glutes. So if you experience lower back pain, we'll also recommend stretches that'll focus on your glutes as well. So right here he has it tight. So most likely that muscle, if it takes a little more pressure and tension, it'll start compressing on that nerve and he'll start feeling tingling sensations or numbing sensations, sharp pain. And the stretches will hold for about 30 seconds. Or here with the compression, we'll just hold it for about 30 seconds. And we'll move to different areas. Applying direct pressure. just depending on the severity, it can take, in somewhat rare cases, 1 to 2 sessions. Normally it'll take 4 to 5 sessions, maybe 6, with consistent visitation. In many cases it usually does. And also just over time, then it'll pass on to the other side. So it's very common for us to hear, once one side is sort of resolved, and sort of like, oh, well, now I feel it on the other side. Why is that? And it's like, well, because you probably already had it before. So sciatica and sciatic-related symptoms is normally something that we specialize in here, and it's we have a large range of knowledgeable therapists here that focus on it and use different approaches, but nevertheless it's very effective. Thank you.
Alright, so finally I'm done with the session. I feel amazing. I don't feel the sciatica anymore. It definitely went down. So I want to recommend anybody that is a hard worker or trains hard. You don't need to be a MMA fighter, professional athlete to come into Salvador Juanes Center. I totally encourage you to, even if you're just a clerk at a desk, I'm sure you're gonna have some tension in your shoulders. So don't rob yourself from the experience and come in and feel as great as I do with Salvador Juanes Center.